That number did something to you. You Googled it, right? How much should I have saved by 30? Maybe it was 2 in the morning. Maybe it was a Tuesday. Doesn't matter. The number came back and your stomach dropped. And for a second, you just sat there doing the math on how far behind you were. I know that moment. I was making 42 grand a year, mid-20s, and I Googled the same thing. The number I found was somewhere around 60 grand. And I did the math. And I closed the laptop. And I didn't do a single thing about my savings for almost a year, because what was the point of saving $200 a month when I was already that far in the hole? Turns out the number was a product, not a benchmark, a product. And once I understood how it was built, who built it, and why the whole thing looked different, so let's look at it. The number you found wherever you found it was probably somewhere in the range of 50 to 62 grand. That's the figure financial media publishes when someone Googles average savings by 30. NerdWallet runs it, Bankrate runs it, Forbes Advisor runs it. That figure circulates everywhere, drawn loosely from Federal Reserve survey data, though the benchmark articles blend categories to land on it. $62,410. That's the number. That's what made your stomach drop. Here is the number they don't run. $5,400. That's the median liquid savings checking savings money market for Americans under 35. Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances, 2022. Not a fringe source. The same survey, different line. $5,400. Half of everyone under 35 has less than that in liquid savings. Half of them. The person in the dead middle of the distribution, not the bottom, not the broke, not anyone who made unusual mistakes, has $5,400. So you have the number that made you feel like a failure, 62 grand, and you have the number that reflects where most people actually are, 5,400. And the gap between them is 11 to 1. That gap is not an accident. Here's how it works. The mean, the average, gets dragged upward by whoever is at the top. The top 10% of households in this country own 67% of total wealth. When you throw their balances into the same calculation as everyone else's, the mean explodes. The person with 800 grand in their checking account and the person with 3 grand in their checking account get averaged together, and that average becomes the benchmark you measure yourself against. The median doesn't do that. The median is just the person in the middle. The median is immune to the guy at the top. You know what that means for you? It means the number you've been losing sleep over was never built to reflect your reality. Financial media knows this. They teach statistics. They know exactly what the mean does and what the median does. They ran the mean anyway. You want to know why? Because 62,000 creates anxiety, 5,400 creates relief. And relief doesn't sell robo-advisors. NerdWallet, Bankrate, Forbes Advisor, the benchmark article is the top of an acquisition funnel. You land on the page feeling behind, and there's a savings app waiting at the bottom. The anxiety is the product. You were never the problem. Sit with that for a second. You weren't behind. You were exactly where most people are, and the number you measured yourself against was specifically chosen because it would make you feel like you weren't. Now, why is normal this low? Because knowing the real median doesn't mean pretending the situation is fine. It isn't fine. Normal is 5,400 because a generation of people had their entire savings decade systematically extracted before they could get started. The first extraction, student loans. The average federal student loan debt for someone 25 to 34 is $33,150. Average monthly payment, somewhere in the $250 range. Pay that for 8 years, ages 22 to 30, and you've sent $24,000 out the door during the exact decade. Compound interest would have worked hardest for you. But it's not just the 24 grand. $250 a month invested at 8% from age 22 to age 30 compounds to roughly $33,500 by the time you're 30. So the real cost isn't $24,000. It's $57,500 stripped out of the prime building window by design, while servicers collected interest on the debt that generated their business. And look, I want to be clear about something. This isn't a list of excuses. It's a list of dollar amounts, real ones, with your name on them. That's not a personal failure. That's a dollar amount. The system collected it from you. The second extraction, rent. Millennials spent roughly 45% of their income on rent during their 20s. The threshold the government uses for cost burdened is 30%. They were 15 points over that for 8 years. And it wasn't because they were reckless. Rent grew 32.6% between 2018 and 2022. Median income grew 20.8%, 12-point gap. If rent grows faster than your income, the math compresses what's left to save, and it doesn't matter how disciplined you are. You can't save money you don't have. This isn't failure, it's physics. And the good news about physics is that you can work with it once you know the actual forces. Now, real quick, and I'm going to spend about 60 seconds on this, and then we're moving the Instagram problem. You're not just comparing yourself to a fake benchmark. You're comparing yourself to other people whose positions you're also misreading. The friend who just posted the house closing, 9% down on a $400,000 home, is 36 grand down and 364 grand in mortgage, plus PMI until they hit 20% equity. The new car post, average new car loan right now is 42 grand. 748 a month for 69 months, call it 5.5 years. That's $51,600 in total payments on a $42,000 loan. He's not winning. He's financed. You're comparing your savings account balance to other people's debt schedules, and you're losing a comparison that was never real. All right, moving. Net worth tells the same story, and honestly, this one caught me off guard when I ran the numbers. Median net worth for Americans 25 to 29 is $30,160. For 30 to 34, it jumps to $89,800. That sounds more encouraging until you notice that the 30 to 34 number is inflated by the 2019 to 2022 pandemic asset surge. Home equity exploded. Markets ran. The median net worth in that bracket jumped roughly a third in 3 years. That's not a stable baseline. That's a snapshot of an unusual moment that has since corrected. The underlying position is significantly more modest, and the mean versus median gap tells the same story at every age bracket. The mean always makes everyone feel further behind than they are. All right, so here's your actual starting line. 5,400, that's the median. That's probably close to where you are. And here is what you build from that position. Start here, and this one has a dollar amount attached to doing nothing. If your savings are sitting in a traditional savings account, they're probably earning somewhere around 0.01% annually. That 5,400 at 0.01% is 54 cents a year. That's what your bank is paying you to park your money there. A high-yield savings account right now pays around 4.5%. Same $5,400 at 4.5% is $243 in year one. Zero additional contribution. Same money. Same FDIC insurance, same risk, $242 difference for a 15-minute account opening. The traditional savings account isn't safe. It's just expensive in a way that doesn't show up on your statement. That's the first move. Now add $200 a month automated, so the decision never happens, and here's what the math does. Year one, you're looking at roughly $7,800. Year three, call it $13,200. By year 5, that's around $19,100. That's not behind. That's a real emergency fund in the beginning of a real position built from the exact median starting point with 2 structural moves. Once that emergency fund is solid, call it 3 months of essential expenses, somewhere between 9 and 15 grand, depending on your situation. The overflow starts going somewhere. It can compound harder. $200 a month in an index fund from age 30 hits roughly $36,600 by age 40 at 8% average return. And that's starting from where most people actually are, not from a fictional benchmark. Here's what I want you to do today. Not eventually, today. Write down your real number, checking plus savings plus any other liquid account. One number, one place, not the benchmark, yours. You cannot build from a number you won't look at, and you've been building from someone else's number for long enough. Once you have that, figure out your 3-month essential expenses number. Rent, utilities, food, minimum debt payments. Multiply by 3, that's your actual first milestone. Not 50 grand, not 62, just that number. It's probably somewhere between 9 and 15,000, and it's achievable from where you are. Now, the next move, if your savings are in a traditional account, get them into a high-yield savings account this week. It takes 15 minutes, there's no risk. The only thing you're risking by not doing it is the $243 a year you're leaving on the table, which compounds, by the way, and so does the habit of letting it sit. Last thing, and this is the one that matters most, set one automatic transfer from checking to that HYSA, even 100 a month. The enemy of saving isn't wanting to save. It's the moment every month where you decide whether to do it. Remove the moment. The transfer happens without you, which means it happens. Here's where you actually are. You're at the median, which means you're exactly where half of everyone your age is, including a lot of the people who look further ahead. The benchmark you've been measuring yourself against was published by people whose business model requires you to feel inadequate. The real number is 5,400. That's the starting line. And from 5,400, with 2 structural moves and 1 automated transfer, the math works. The only thing that keeps you stuck is building from a number someone else invented to sell you something. Now you know the real number. The question is, what's the first threshold that actually changes something, not the benchmark someone else set? Your first real turning point, the number where the math shifts, where options open up that weren't there before. That's a different conversation. And it's the next one.